Many African Americans have asked the question of why is it that in many ways we are now far worse off today as a culture than we were before integrations and before the gains made by the civil rights movement. The answer is right in front of our faces. However, many of us are intellectually blinded from seeing what's being done to us. We're intellectually blinded from seeing the war that's being systematically waged against our minds and against our culture. While we, Black people, studied religion as if it's true knowledge that will protect us, white oppressive forces studied instead how to shape our minds in ways that serves and protects their interests. They then exploited that gained knowledge to mentally enslave millions of Black people. They used religion to get us to abandon our critical thinking skills and replace it with blind faith. So as a result of this, more Black people are now focused on being holy rather than focusing on being very intelligent and sharpening our critical thinking skills, which is essential in order for the emancipating of our minds from white mental slavery. Our focus on religion has in fact made us easy victims for those who have studied how to effectively manipulate the human mind, because it has kept us ignorant of the advances made in the field of mental social engineering and mass manipulation of large targeted populations over the last century. We therefore have little awareness and little understanding of the ramification of the psychological warfare tactics that are being presently deployed against our minds by white oppressive forces as a means of maintaining their social dominance over us. Therefore, those who know the truth must teach African proverb. Here's the hidden reason why the African American culture is in many ways far worse off after integration and the civil rights gains. The white oppressors are unrelentingly committed towards maintaining their dominance over Black people. Therefore, while creating the illusion of developing a more equal and fair society through integration, they secretly deployed an insidious ideological subversion system against the African American culture that aids them in maintaining their social dominance over Black people. They deployed an ideological subversion system against our culture. It has totally changed our cultures in ways that are against our own interests and instead in ways that aids in maintaining the system of white supremacy. It's achieved through 5 phases: destabilization, crisis, demoralization, miseducation, and normalization. Destabilization. They created unfair laws designed to mass incarcerate millions of Black fathers, remove them from their homes. They also created financial assistance programs that stipulated that the fathers remain out of their home in order to receive benefits. They then created the "I don't need a damn man" propaganda campaign and spread it into that ideology into the minds of many Black women. These things collectively destabilize the Black family. 2, crisis. They constantly inundate us with propaganda campaign telling us that we're within a state of crisis to subliminally convey the belief that we therefore need whites to govern over our lives. 3, demoralization. They constantly inundate Black people with fraudulent negative narratives about ourselves in order to heavily demoralize us. The ultimate goal is to demoralize us to such an extent that we begin to doubt our own ability to govern ourselves. And we begin to believe that we therefore need whites to govern over our lives. Moreover, we begin to believe that we're better off living under white dominance, and therefore we abandon all hopes of ever liberating ourselves. The unrelenting demoralization also creates Black self-hatred and disunity, which attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people, and we can then be ruled over forever. The 4th is miseducation. They integrate Black students into schools in which they're being denied most racially affirming facts about themselves. They're literally being miseducated to perceive their racial group as being the leeches of the world that haven't contributed much throughout history. They're also being miseducated to believe that their history began with slavery, because before slavery, their ancestors lived merely as basically wild animals, and therefore they have no history, no significant history prior to being enslaved. The white educational system's failure to adequately provide Black students with a racially affirming curriculum, as it routinely does so for white students, is actually a social engineering tactic that is essential for maintaining white dominance over black people. Because for a ruling class to maintain its position of social dominance over its oppressed population, they must condition the oppressed from a very early age to accept their own subordinate status and to adhere to the authority of the dominant culture. To do so, the education given to the oppressed from the time that their minds are very young and most impressionable must be the type that denies them of a racially affirming curriculum. When the oppressed are denied a racially affirming education, this psychologically conditions them to accept their subordinate status within a society dominated by their oppressors. Under these circumstances, even the brightest may have little hope of mentally extricating themselves from their feelings of inferiority and their assigned low dominant position within the society. 5. Negative media social engineering. Most people naively believe that the media reflects our reality, but in truth, it's more often we that imitate what we see and learn from the media. A group's identity is greatly shaped by how they see themselves repeatedly depicted within the media. This is a fact. People often become those derogatory media depictions of themselves that they accept as being their reality. Therefore, those who control the people's media images literally are able to control and steer their culture. It's a true science known as media social engineering. Because the white society controls our media images, this allows them to negatively steer our culture. They did this to steer us away from the Black Pride movement, which was prevalent during the 1960s, in which we call ourselves brothers and sisters, to now into the ghettoized culture, in which we call ourselves niggers, thugs, bitches, and hoes, sags our pants, and glorifies pimps. This isn't some feeble attempt at absolving ourselves of our own responsibilities by wrongly blaming white people, as so many have been conditioned to respond. It's the absolute truth. White oppressive forces writes our narratives and controls our media images, and they've exploited this scenario to negatively steer our culture, while misleading us to believe that it's we who are negatively steering ourselves. Finally, normalization. The black population then normalized everything that's been done to us. And because we've normalized it, we're incapable of freeing our minds from it. This is why our culture is upside down. There's nothing normal about calling ourselves niggers, calling our women bitches and hoes. There's nothing normal about perceiving ourselves as our own worst enemies. There's nothing normal about revering Caucasians in spite of a brutal history to the contrary. Our culture has been turned upside down, and the white society did this through deploying an ideological subversion system against us. An ideological subversion system is a propaganda campaign that uses manipulation and deception and feeds this information towards the targeted population to change the targeted population in ways that are against their own interests and then serve the interests of those who are spreading the propaganda. The white society has distorted our culture. We must recognize what's being done to us in order to liberate ourselves. This is the truth of our plight and condition. One love and peace, brothers and sisters. One love and peace.